Betsey,
Hey, Laurel, how's it going?
it's going well. I am so excited for this interview. And let me just give a little brief introduction to our friends online, to Betsey Kulakowski. And Betsey and I met actually at a WriterCon conference, which is a fabulous annual conference at the Skirvin Hotel in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, over Labor Day weekend. So it's easy to remember, right? And
Absolutely. I've already got my hotel reservations made.
yay! I'm glad you said that. I need to make a call.
Yes.
I need to make a call. There's one floor that I really like because it's really accessible to the conference. So anyway, I got to meet Betsey. Actually, Betsey, we got to know each other on the cruise, the WriterCon cruise.
Right before the pandemic hit.
It was right before.
Yes. February of 2020.
Amazing.
Yep.
I mean, we didn't even have a wiggle. We didn't even worry about getting home. Mm-hmm. Although I think there was a cruise ship or two.
The same day that we docked in Galveston, the one in New Jersey was quarantined. That close. I mean, that close.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was blissfully unaware of that. So that was good. Yeah. But I will say that was really an amazing cruise because we not only got to cruise, and Betsey did some really cool stuff off site, which I did other things that were cool, but we were in classes.
And they were great classes.
Oh my gosh.
I learned so much.
Me too. And, I realized that as writers, we're kind of a different breed. Like we would really get excited about classes on a cruise, but we didn't have classes like all day, every day, but we had some really, really good classes and we made some amazing connections.
Absolutely did.
So that is what we're talking about today. And I just want to tell everyone just right up front that when I started thinking about who to interview for the Getting Connected or series, I thought about Betsey because Betsey is really good about getting connected. So Betsey, tell us a little bit about you as a writer.
All right. Well, I have been writing for as long as I can remember. I think I wrote my first book when I was 6. I learned to read before I started school, before I even started kindergarten. I don't remember a time ever not reading. I was always into stories and into books. So I started out really young, loving books and loving stories and things like that. I remember my granddad, when I was little, I would crawl up in his lap and I said, "Granddad, tell me a yarn. Tell me a story." And he had the most amazing stories when he grew up on the farm. And I mean, I couldn't have been 3 or 4 years old, and I still remember some of the stories that he used to tell. So I've had a long love affair with the story and being able to tell those stories and then becoming a writer. But I never realized I could make a career out of it. I thought I had to have a job that paid bills. So when I was 18 years old, I went to work for the Oklahoma Department of Labor. And I spent 27 years working as a safety professional and ended up getting my degree in emergency management. And the one thing I learned from this career is that you need connections. You have to have people that you can pivot to because there's no way one person can know everything or do everything. So in emergency management, we talk about building relationships before the disaster. You don't wait until you're on scene dealing with a fire or explosion or a terrorist attack to make friends. You do it over pie and coffee at the coffee shop well in advance, and you practice together, you drill together, you train together. And it's so important in life, and it's so important in writing is you've got to have people you can rely on and people you can train with and write with and critique with. And so those relationships as part of my career were important. And I realized really quickly in writing, it was the same way. It's not really any different.
Yeah. That's so good. I have a theory that sometimes our destiny catches us in unexpected places in unexpected ways, because really that ability and what you had to learn as far as connecting in order to get a job done is so powerful. And I see it operating in your life, and I see it really making you a successful author.
Yeah, I've definitely tried to play that strength up, because there's so many areas where I'm not strong. People might be surprised to find this out, but I am a very introverted extrovert. I'm very shy. I'm no.
That's hard to believe.
I'm really not.
I was like,
that's not the Betsey we know. But inside, sometimes my heart is pounding, and I walk into a room and I don't know anybody, and I just want to go home. So, being a writer was one of those areas where I could just kind of let my brain, be in its comfort zone and be where I wasn't pressured, or where I didn't feel like I needed to be somebody different. I could be anybody I wanted, but I didn't have to be, who people thought I had to be. So that was one of those things that, I'm really coming out of my shell as I get older. I'm not shy really anymore. I used to be, but I'm really not. So one of the things I did was I started reaching out. I write paranormal thrillers. The Veritas Codex is one of those, and that's the book I pitched on the writer's cruise and ended up getting published. The first book came out in September of last year. That's the Veritas Codex. And then book 2 was The Jaguar Queen, which came out in January. And book 3 is coming out in June, and that's The Alien Accord. So I started reaching out to the paranormal community, and I had been to some paranormal events here in Oklahoma. I'd gone on some ghost hunts, and I spent time down in New Orleans and had done ghost tours there. I always teased about finding Bigfoot when I was a kid. We used to live in the Pacific Northwest when I was really little. I think that was really the first big legend that I had heard about. So that's where I started with book 1. It's kind of a hunt for Bigfoot. So I started writing these, and I started getting in with the paranormal community. Ironically, I've had the best success on Instagram. I kind of felt like I was a little old for Instagram. My daughter kind of talked me into it. She's 17. And so I, got on Instagram, and I found this wonderful, welcoming, rich paranormal community in a place that I never thought to look before. It's kind of like finding Bigfoot. I never thought to look there. Well, there he is. So I started working with them and was invited to do some podcasts there. And now I feel like I could say I have some true friends in this community that I can rely on, that help me, flesh out a story, or tell me, what kind of animals I'm going to see in South Africa. And so it's just one of those, you never know where you're going to find those connections. You just have to be open to the opportunity.
Wow. I love that, because Betsey and I were talking a little bit ahead of time about Instagram and how I've been kind of putting my toes in the water, because it seems to be just a great way to connect. But, in a new venue, sometimes it's like, well, I need a little more information. So tell us about the podcast, Betsey. How did all of that come about?
Well, it was kind of ironic. I had not had my Instagram account very long, and I was just kind of putting out promos for the book, the Bigfoot hashtags and stuff like that.
Right.
And one of the paranormal investigators who does a podcast up in Iowa was looking for some books. He was looking for something to read, and I don't remember if he said he found me out through Amazon or if he found it through one of my posts, but he found the Veritas Codex, and of course he's looking at the blurb. Everybody talks about how important the blurb is. So he's looking at the blurb, and then he's reading the reviews. And one of the reviews said, that it was kind of like Dan Brown, and Dan Brown meets the X-Files. I think that's how I pitched it. And he said, I'm all about anything for Dan Brown. So I downloaded it, and I'm immediately hooked. And he's like, he's in love with Lauren, and he's crazy about the characters and the stories. And so, he reached out to me, and he said, I really love your book, and I want you to be on my show. And I'm like, I'm there. When do you want to do it? So, in the middle of 2020, through all the craziness that was the ice storm and the bad weather and everything that we had, they had tornadoes up in his area. We had to put it off for a week or two, but we finally got it recorded, and it aired, and I have a link to it on my website. So, it was just a great conversation between what seemed like old friends. And so now we still communicate, and I listen to his podcast. I've got a couple of them that I'm just really hardcore. I've listened to every episode. Yeah. I don't know when I find time, but somehow it's always going in the background, like while I'm cooking dinner or, working out in the yard or whatever. So
Yeah, sure.
it's just one of those things. Just it seems like those relationships have been some of the most meaningful, and I think that's we all want to connect, but what level? I get hit on Facebook all the time. I get hit on Instagram. I don't want that. I'm a happily married woman.
Exactly.
But occasionally you'll have that nugget of joy, that perfect person out there who just needs to hear your story and just wants to be your friend. And like you said, finding that connection and being in the right place at the right time, that the universe brings you together. It's preordained sometimes. So, I found some people like that through those connections. And, I've got a couple groups that I've gotten to be members of that there's 2 or 3 people in there that I really connect with. And I actually started with a critique group that I found through Facebook, and we met in person. And the very first night I walked in, it was held at the public library. I walk in, I sit down, I'm nervous because here I am, an extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
And I'm scared. I write weird stuff. I'm talking about Bigfoot. So, I'm kind of nervous to actually want to read anything. And I read first that night. They didn't even give me a chance to hear what they were writing. No, read it. We want to hear it. And I'm still a member of that group. We're still active. And through the pandemic, we've actually met every week through Zoom. Yeah. And that was something that has been a blessing because some of our members have moved out of state. And so, we're still finding ways to connect, and we're still, we've got those lasting friendships, and they help me make my work better. I've got a couple of fantastic critique partners in that group that are they call me out on all these things. I specifically remember there's a fight scene between Lauren and Rowan where they get into this really heated argument. Yeah. And I'm very non-confrontational. I don't like to fight. I don't want to get into that. And they're like, no, you have to take that farther. You have to make that a big blow up because this is a big pivotal scene. And I remember very distinctly working and reworking that scene because every week we'd meet and they're like, okay, we want to hear what'd you write? What'd you change? And I'd read it. Oh, that's good, but a little bit more. And they really pushed me to make that better. And I think that the whole book was better because it really helped lay the foundation for the entire Veritas Codex series.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hear you saying there's lots of different levels of connection. So, sometimes there's a critique group where you form relationships that last for years. Mm-hmm. And they're so good because often they'll tell you things that other people won't tell you, although that's not entirely true. Mm-hmm. But they, in light of knowing your writer's voice, knowing a little bit about your story, they're such a powerful input.
Absolutely.
And a lasting input on what you write and how you write.
I think a lot of people go into relationships in general, but like a critique group, you go into it looking for the what's in it for me. Yeah. But I always try to approach it from the what can I bring to the table? How can I help somebody else first? And I'll get what I need. I always sending those positive vibes out to the universe. And so, I went into that group and that was one of the few times I was like, okay, what am I going to get out of this? Because I was still considered myself a new writer back then. It was just a couple years ago. But I hadn't published. I didn't have a path to publication. And, I'm writing about Bigfoot. So this is a book for practice anyway. So what does it matter? Nobody else is going to read it, but this group can hear it because it's just for practice. And boy, was I wrong.
Exactly.
And that's okay too.
It is okay. It is okay. And actually, writers love to connect, because our work is so solitary and it is such a fun, it's a combination of art and craft that, wow, we need feedback. When we get in our own heads, it all makes sense and we can just be on a roll and write. But wow, learning the craft as well as the art of storytelling requires other people's feedback. Yeah. And once you get over the kind of woe is me, they're going to think it's terrible. Well, it might be terrible. In fact, I have a dear friend who was she submitted a portion of a manuscript to a contest and she got some pretty rough feedback. And I was like, okay, well, you can check that off your list now. I mean, if you've had rough feedback, who cares? It's
Yeah.
okay. Don't put the manuscript in a drawer. Don't stop. Take some time to heal.
Yeah, when I get work back from a critique group or editor or whatever, I will read through it, and sometimes I'll get my mad on. It's like, did you not read the end of the book? Did you not see what happened? And then I realize, you know what? Apparently I didn't explain it well enough.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to go back and fix that. Okay. I'm over that. I'm going to get it done. It's okay. And, you move on, you learn from it, and you make it better. And, that's the goal, is you want to put out the best product you can, and you've got to learn to listen to other people. You can't just assume that you're always right.
I call that authentic connection.
Exactly.
You can get, which I don't find a whole lot of that in the writers community. People telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I have not experienced
Those
that
are not your friends, by the way. If people are just telling you what you want to hear, that is not your friend.
No. I mean, and of course you don't want the whole slice and dice, but if the slice and dice happens, it's not the end of the world. And it's certainly not a reflection of you as a writer, because both of us with our first novels were very unsure and very convinced that they wouldn't. I mean, where are they going to go? It's just a little first novel. Yeah. But we were both published on our first novels. So, I mean, I got rough feedback on that first novel, but I was learning every critique, every criticism, everything I learned went into that first novel. I mean,
absolutely. And that's important. You just pour your heart and soul into it, and, you make it good. And then you find somebody who can go in and go, I can make it better. And if you're open to that and your heart is willing, it's going to be a fantastic book.
Yes.
And then you write 10 more just like it, and you have a great series.
Yeah.
Which is what I did.
So I want you to talk about that a little bit, Betsey, because we just kind of touched on it before we went live, because Betsey, you really are prolific, and not every writer writes that quickly. But I heard you say something that was really interesting. How do you spend your evenings? Now, let's clarify that you're not writing full time. You're working full time and writing.
Right.
So tell us about
I'm
that.
a business leader. I run a small nonprofit. I have 10 employees. So I have a full-time job, and it's not always just 8 hours a day. Some days it's longer. We put on our own conference, just like WriterCon, except it's a safety conference. So, I'm a busy person, but when I come home at the end of the evening, at the end of the day, dinner I might make, I might not. Sometimes my teenage daughter pitches in and helps, and I'm always grateful for that. Sometimes my husband will pick something up, which I'm always grateful for that. Just don't make me decide. I have enough decisions to make it work. I don't want to do that at home.
Exactly.
But I take time to get my exercise in. I take care of me. And as soon as that's done, I sit down and I write. And I'm very selective on what television programs I watch. I don't watch that very many. The news in the morning, and then 1 or 2 shows during the week, because I don't have time to watch TV because I am writing. I'm more interested in what Lauren and Rowan are doing in the Veritas Codex than I am with what's on television most of the time. Now, I do enjoy a good movie every now and then. I miss going to the movie theater. It's been over a year since we've been. I miss movie theater popcorn. It's my favorite food in the world. And I'm ready for that to come back. But in the meantime, I am writing, and my weekends are pretty hectic, running errands and doing the shopping. And, thank goodness my kids are good at helping me clean house, because I'm not, because I'm writing. I will do anything to avoid cleaning house. And that if it means writing, I will do it. So when I do sit down to write, I write really fast. The last typing test I took was 145 words a minute.
Wow.
I've taken a couple since then that the computer could not keep up with me, and I broke it.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean, when I'm on the jazz, I can write super fast. I had one weekend after the cruise that I came home on Friday night, and I had a story idea that had been stirring in my head all week. And I sat down over the weekend on my back patio. It was kind of chilly, and I had my iPad up on the table because I had research videos running in the background, and I'm writing as I'm watching the videos, and I wrote 25,000 words over the weekend. That's half a book in 2 days.
Yeah, I think there's so much to falling in love with storytelling. and to fall in love with our own stories.
Yep.
But the thing is, and you do have to unplug. I have to unplug the editor because I was an English teacher. So I have a very strong editor in my head. But for me, longhand, I can move really fast in longhand. But I kind of have to know where I'm going. And I think there's a kind of a combination of discovery and outline that's really powerful. So I wanted you to talk about that a little bit. Are you a discovery girl primarily?
Well, I consider myself a recovering pantser. I am now a plantser because I used to just sit and write, and I'd wander through the woods lost for years. And I'd end up with 100,000 word manuscript and no clear direction of what it really should look like. So I have gotten a lot better about that. I will typically sit down and maybe write out a paragraph. This book is going to be about the Veritas Codex team is looking for the lost Mayan civilization.
Yeah.
And in the course of that, they're going to run across a thief who's selling antiquities. And he's telling this legend about a jaguar queen who fell from the sky. Go. And that's kind of how it starts. And then I start weaving my way through, getting the characters introduced and getting the setting put together. And then it's just go. Just turn me loose and let me type. And sometimes I get lost. Sometimes I get off the path and I have to turn around. And that's where my critique groups help me out. My editors help me out, get me back on track.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to watch that whole process go through. And sometimes it takes me longer, but sometimes I think my fastest I've ever written a complete 50,000 word manuscript was 26 days. Yeah. And when I was not published and I didn't really have a clear path to publication, I started the Veritas Codex series probably about 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And that, was for practice. I didn't want anybody else to see it. I didn't think anybody else would see it. And when that was done, then I wrote a sequel just for practice, just to make sure I could. And then I wrote another one thinking, I want to see if I can write a trilogy. And I did. And when we went on the writer's cruise and I pitched that, I already had 6 books written. And now there are 10.
Yeah.
So there's lots more to come on the Veritas Codex series. It's not just going to be a trilogy.
I always like to ask, because every writer is a little bit different as far as, how thoroughly they know ahead of time what's going to be happening. Generally, I think some sort of a structure or a framework is really, really helpful. At least And I was going to put a little plug in here, Betsey, for Write Your Heart Out, because Write Your Heart Out is...
Because I do.
Exactly. Anyway, so Write Your Heart Out is a coaching business for emerging writers. And so we do a lot of, so what is it that unplugs you as a writer? What is it that gets that free flow going? But at the same time, unless you have copious amounts of time and don't mind writing an extra 100,000 words, know where you're going, know what it is to build a strong character, and a character who's flawed, and a character who will have a character arc, through a disaster and a dark moment and an aha, so there's certain things that once you have that structure in place, you can just have fun with the story. Yeah. And that's what we want. That's the joy.
Yeah, exactly. I have one book coming up that the whole premise of it came from one quote that came to me in the middle of the night. I woke up from a dead sleep with this line running through my head: "The devil had it coming."
Ooh. Ooh.
And the whole book was written with that little sticky note on my desk: "The devil had it coming."
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. The first scene of When Stars Brush Earth, I dreamed. And I know that, okay, so don't ever put a dream at the beginning of a story. Don't ever do that. But I crafted into a scene, and I was like, where is this story going to go? It was about a chateau, a mountain chateau, where all of these children were. I was like, what are all these kids? What are they doing? And why are they in a mountain chateau? And I knew that there was someone after them. So they were hiding there, and there were adults who were hiding them. So it opened up to all kinds of interesting research, because I found out that there was a term called the hidden children during World War II, and Jewish children were taken and hidden in mountain chateaus and convents and abbeys, and they were hidden to protect them. So that was like, but it started with a dream. It was a
I love
scene
it when
that
that happens.
actually dreamed.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, okay, so let's finish up. You let me just hear you talk a little bit to like an emerging writer about, okay, so usually writers are kind of introverted. What would you say to an emerging writer who maybe has some really great stories, possibly on paper, but what would you tell them about getting and staying connected as a writer?
Yeah. The first bit of advice I would give them, and this is something I wish somebody would have made me do, because I had heard it before, but I didn't listen. Get out of your own way. Oof. Because sometimes the only thing keeping you from getting published and from having the next great book is you.
Wow.
So get out of your own way. And once I got out of my own way and realized that I was onto something, I had something good, and the only thing stopping me was me, then that's when things started to move. So get out of your own way.
Ooh.
Yeah. When you go to build connections, when there's nothing else between you and anybody else in the room, there has to be trust. So you may not know them very well, but you have to find somebody in the room that you can trust to give you honest feedback. So with my critique group, I had figured out really quick who my really good critique people were going to be. And fortunately, it was most everybody in the group, because it's just a really solid critique group.
Yeah.
And so trust was the only thing I had. I had to get out of my own way, and I had to have trust to read that manuscript to them and hope that they would give me something good back. So trust is good, but you want to find your tribe. Find the people who accept you for you, the way you are, but push you to be just a little bit better. So you want to find that acceptance, and you want to make sure that you give what you get. So you're not just in the what's in it for me. It's what can I bring to the table.
Wow. That is golden. So write that down, everyone. It's so, thank you. Thank you very much. I knew she'd prepare. I knew it was going to be good. I as a writer, I think, the whole idea of getting over ourselves is, it's really freeing, because there are so many, they're lovers of books, they're lovers of story. So why wouldn't we kind of get out there and go into areas that I really appreciated what you said, Betsey, about sometimes your heart races, sometimes you get a little clammy, but that you just do it anyway. And I love that. It puts us into positions of growth and in places of connection that we wouldn't go otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Growth does not happen in your comfort zone.
Darn. Well,
you've got to get out of it.
I have a feeling that we both have a little bit of experience with that. And it is a place where you just decide that you're going to be okay with that. Yeah. It's going to be okay. And I think that when I start getting a little too comfortable, then I have to do something that makes me scared. And I love that you had a book signing recently, didn't you? I love that.
Yep. That was awesome. I have a friend that's a fellow author. He's I consider him my writing partner, my critique partner. He was my professor in college. We're really good friends. So we went in and did a book signing together at the Underground coffee shop out in Midwest City. We had about 30 people come. So it was a really good turnout. Did a couple of readings. We took turns. He's got 6 books out because he self-publishes, and I'm a little more methodical. I go through and I got the editor, I got the whole process going. So mine takes a little bit longer, but as soon as I got published, he's like, that's it, I'm publishing. I can't let you get ahead of me. So it's a little competitive, and it's okay. We're great friends. So there's no hard feelings or anything like that. So we did a book signing and then currently working on setting up something with Full Circle Bookstore in July. So that'll be after the new book comes out. So book 3 will be available for autographs as well.
Yay. Yep. Well, good to know, because, book signings can be great. I mean, there's, that again is a connection. And you can call it a platform, and it is, but basically, even with a book signing, it's very relational. I mean, people are coming in the door, they don't know you, you don't know them. So there's a certain amount of, hello, I have a great
Put yourself
book.
out there. Do you like Bigfoot? You want to read about Bigfoot?
Yeah. And then
Some
read a
people
little bit.
go, no, that's not my cup of tea. And it's like, that's fine. Everybody's got their cup. But, finding readers, that's always a challenge is, you can write the great book and you can make great connections with writers, but you got to connect with the readers too. So you want to be one of those people that everybody wants to be around and people want to like. So you've got to be relatable and authentic, and, they can spot a fraud a mile away. So,
and they don't, I mean, the whole marketing thing, people are tired of being marketed. I think that the whole, I love your heart about giving, because really that's such a huge relational key, which is a huge connection fee. It's a huge part of connection, and really you're connecting because someone loves to read or they love to write, and you're sharing something that's really dear to your heart. So, hey, it's a win-win. And I love that you did a little reading. I think that sets a book signing apart, is to actually do some reading, because who doesn't love that?
Exactly. The other thing we did was we did our cover reveals for our upcoming book. So the Alien Accord, people got to see the cover before anybody else. So that was kind of fun. It's like, maybe people don't care as much about what the cover looks like, but I was excited because, we worked hard to get that cover put together, and I was really happy with how it turned out. And I couldn't wait to show it off. It was when I was sitting in my pictures on my phone. And every time I'd scroll past, I was like, I want to post it. I'm going to wait. Build some excitement. So that was kind of fun to be able to do a book cover reveal. And, I had a lot of really good friends who have supported me through this whole process, that as soon as they found out I was going to get published, they were like, they're on board. They were the first to order the book, forced to write a review. So, those are the kinds of friends you need. And they're the ones telling their friends, and they're going to tell their friends. And, word of mouth advertising is huge. I mean, that's how Outlander got to be as big as it is, because it all started with word of mouth advertising. That was back before the internet, and there were book tours and things like that, but Diana Gabaldon didn't have some of the platforms that we have now. And so it was really word of mouth, and her book doesn't match any one genre. It's historical, it's science fiction, it's a little bit of everything. So I can imagine what that was like back in 1991, trying to promote a book that nobody knew anything about from an author they'd never heard of. And, at least we have the internet, and I had a platform built before I published. I had been really kind of trying to grow my followership on Facebook and Twitter, and then recently Instagram. And so I'm amazed to see how fast that's picking, especially on Instagram, how much it's picking up, because every 3 weeks I'm adding 100 new followers, and and that's from posting things that aren't just buy my book. I throw that in on occasion, but I'm really trying to make sure that I'm putting up things that people are interested in, and the community that I've followed into, that they're interested in. So it's one of those things that it's a balancing act, because you do want to get out there and promote your book, but you also are promoting yourself. You're building a brand. It's a business. And so you're building business relationships. And again, to have a friend, you have to be a friend. So, I would ask them, other podcasters and things like that, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make your platform better? Do you need reviews? Okay, I'll go and write some reviews. I'm getting really good at writing reviews. So, I love to throw those 5 stars up, and there's some of them I have no qualms about going and giving them 5 stars, because they're fantastic. If they're not 5 stars, then I'm going to talk to them about, well, here's something. Can I make a suggestion? I'm not going to tell you how to do your podcast, but I think people would like to hear this, or, I try not to ever be bossy or, critiquey or anything like that. It's like, they ask for feedback, and I try to give them some honest feedback. So.
Well, I mean, you're relational. Relational is not in your face, or, I'm the only authority here. It's give and take. It's mutual. And, it produces community in a way that is really fabulous. And that's the biggest reason why I wanted to do this series on getting getting connected, because, if writers are feeling alone, a lot of times what happens is they quit, or they put their manuscript in a drawer, and that manuscript stays there, sometimes for years. And it's a really great idea. And if they were in the appropriate community, if they were getting connected in the right way, they would move forward. They'd make whatever adjustments, they'd learn, they'd keep growing, but that manuscript would not be in the drawer. So that's my heart, and write your heart out. And certainly for WriterCon, which Betsey and I are both a part of, and both of us are going to be teaching. And so we want you all to check out writercon.org. And hey, Labor Day at the Skirvin. And actually, it's that whole weekend. I mean, it's a full meal deal. It starts on Friday morning, goes all the way through Sunday evening. It is jam-packed, isn't it?
You'll be tired when it's over, but it's a good tired. It's a happy tired.
It is a happy tired. And you meet all kinds of writers from every kind of different genre, and their acquisition editors that you can, if you are not accustomed to pitching an idea or pitching a book that you've already finished, it's just a great way to learn things, and to be, as we were talking about earlier, Betsey, just being willing to make a leap, in certain ways.
That reminds me of something that happened at the very first WriterCon, where I was going to pitch to an editor or to a publisher. I was so nervous I wasn't going to do it, and I was ready to chicken out, and you came up to me and said, get in there and do it. And I did it, and she liked it, and I got a request for a full.
See?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Sometimes you just need somebody to give you a little nudge. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, Betsey. I mean, I'm a fan, and I think, the two of us are a great example of connection, because we, really, we don't see each other outside of writing circles, would never have met each other outside of writing circles, certainly without the cruise. Right. So, we can both vouch for the fact that it's totally fun, and it totally will put you in places that you didn't expect, and carry you a lot farther faster if you want success in getting your stories read by other people, which is the whole point, right?
Yeah. It doesn't do any good to write a book if nobody reads it. I learned that one.
Well, and a lot of times it's a perfectly good book, but it has to, I'm with you. I like editors. I like it to be spit and polished by the time it comes out.
Yes.
But yeah, a great story, there's just nothing better.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Anyway,
when you catch yourself thinking about your characters, and you're walking down the street, and one of them comes up behind you and goes, you're not telling my story right. That's when you know you're onto something.
Well, it's true. It's true. We do have kind of an interior life. We are just saying.
Very much so.
We do. Well, Betsey, it's been so much fun to talk to you. I knew it would be, and I was looking forward to it. So, hey, Betsey and I are going to be posting this. This will be on my personal page as well as my author page, Laurel A. Thomas. Betsey, how can they find you, and how will you post yours?
I will post it on my website, which is author.betseykulakowski.com.
Okay.
We'll put it in the show notes so you don't have to go try to figure out how to spell that. And then I'll probably also post it on my Instagram and my Facebook and Twitter. I'm on all of those. And again, we'll post all that in the show notes. So
yeah. And I was going to say we'll be on YouTube also. So
yay.
That will be under Laurel Thomas. So
perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, you are so welcome. Thank you for coming and talking to us, Betsey, and sharing about getting connected and the power of getting connected as a successful author. So anyway, it was great to talk to you. You have a good evening, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
I hope so too. Thank you.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.